Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to change things up a little bit. We're going to be talking a bit about some news that dropped from CA. So we're going to be discussing the upcoming DLC. So it has been announced that it will be a Wood Elves DLC, and the other faction will be one of the factions from Warhammer 2, one of the core factions. So that'll either be the Lizardmen, Dark Elves, High Elves, or Skaven. So of those, probably the Skaven is the most likely candidate. The High Elves just had their DLC, and then Dark Elves don't really have a whole lot left to be added. None of the regular units, there's a few hero candidates that could be added, but otherwise there isn't a whole lot that could fill a DLC. The Lizardmen have a couple lords who could be added. We've got perhaps Axiatl or Tatoeco are kind of two candidates from the Lizardmen, but I think the Skaven, they have a very noticeable absence from the game right now. That would be Clan Moulder. So I'm kind of expecting that the other faction is going to be Skaven in this situation. So we might be seeing Throt and with Clan Moulder, and so that'll be in the, at least for the Mortal Empires, that'll be in Hell Pit, and just probably seeing some units like Giant Rats and Packmasters. So now for the rest of the details for this upcoming DLC, if you are not getting the DLC, you will still be getting a free hero character, and you'll just be getting the rest of the update for the game as well that comes with the DLC. However, if you are going to be getting the game and you only have Total War Warhammer 2, you will be getting the two new legendary lords for the Wood Elves and the other Game 2 faction. And both of those will have their own unique faction. They'll both have a Vortex campaign and with some new units, mechanics, etc. Now, if you have Warhammer 1 and 2, as well as getting this new DLC, you'll be seeing the Vortex and Mortal Empires campaign map updates, as well as some Old World updates. And if you have both of those, as well as the Realm of the Wood Elves DLC back from Warhammer 1, you will be getting an additional free legendary lord, and that'll be a Mortal Empires campaign exclusive, as well as multiplayer, and then some new units, unit variants, heroes and spells, and all that good stuff. However, for that additional lord, we do have a little bit of extra information. From the blog post, CA has stated, if you've collected all of that content, you'll also get a bonus legendary lord with all the trimmings. We can't wait to introduce you to her. So that is the big key thing there. So that is going to be hinting to Ariel, at least in my opinion, and kind of from what I've been hearing through the grapevine. So that would be the Queen of Athaloran. That is probably the candidate for that slot. Now, for the Vortex campaign, there are some other candidates. So for the Wood Elves, we have a few candidates. So we have like Iraloth. He, though, is part of Talson, which is currently already a faction commanded by Orion. So I'm not expecting to see him. Especially considering that First Note has stated they'll have their own factions and they will be in the Vortex campaign, and Athaloran doesn't really have a presence in that. The only presence currently on the Vortex map would be the Bowmen of Orion. Now, the problem with the Bowmen of Orion is I don't think that their current ruler, which would be Findle, I don't believe that is going to be a contender, because we also have because the Crag Halls of Findle are also part of Athaloran on the east northeast of Taliesin, from kind of in between where Durthu and Orion start currently in the Mortal Empire. So I wouldn't be expecting him to see, but that is currently the only wood elf presence. Some other characters that we might be seeing would be Drika. However, the problem with that is that she is a hero in the tabletop, and I wouldn't necessarily expect to see Lord. However, you could argue that it would be filling the place of maybe one of that additional Lord that was kind of discussed earlier, and then Ariel would then take that vortex, because that with the DLC you definitely would expect one of those the Vortex Lord to be kind of a high profile target that would be something to kind of lead the DLC. And there's not really a whole lot of other current named characters that the Wood Elves are missing. You have Naestra and Arahan, the twin sisters of Athelorn, though again that is still would be expected to have a starting position in Athelorn, and those wouldn't necessarily be Lord characters anyways. So that's why I'm definitely thinking, well, Ariel is almost, I would consider, a guarantee to be coming. Perhaps Drika to some extent. I wouldn't necessarily think that she would be the free hero character either. I would be expecting that to be one either from the Game 2 faction that is coming with this DLC, or perhaps it could be in like kind of how Gotrek and Felix, when they dropped, they are able to be used with multiple factions. Though for the Game 2 factions, I can't really think of any that would really fit the bill for that. Though there's nothing to say that that new free hero character has to be from either of those two factions. When the Vampire Coast dropped, we had a free lord in the name of Lokir Felhart. Now, he did play a role in the campaign for the Vampire Coast. However, that was not what the DLC was. The DLC was completely Vampire Coast, and they added that in as a free LC. So that would be a consideration. And the Dark Elves do have, as I said before, they're kind of, what's left is more of a hero character list. So you got like the Shadow Blade, you have Orion Poison Blade, so those would be two candidates. You also have, there's a bunch of other characters there. Yeah, Verkarth could be an option for maybe a Lord, though, as I said before, there's not a whole lot of units to be adding. When you consider it also, the Wood Elves themselves don't really have that many units to be adding as well. Now, for the timeline of this DLC, nothing was really set in stone. The only timeline that was given with this update was for the 2020 roadmap for Troy. Now, for Troy, we have the game coming in this coming month on the 13th of August. And then they kind of detailed out when kind of some of the DLCs are coming, multiplayer, all that good stuff. However, there was no note for when this DLC was going to be coming. I'm sure we'll be getting updates in probably the next month, I would hope. But I am currently thinking that this would be sometime perhaps either late September or kind of early mid-October would be kind of the anticipated timeline. However, that is going to be subject to change with kind of how the current world events are going. So that is kind of the news from CA on this, and this is a very anticipated faction. I know a lot of people were thinking this could potentially have been a Wood Elf Beastman campaign of DLC, and there was a lot of talk for having a DLC for a DLC. I know a lot of the old world factions, though, they do need a lot of loving to get them up to speed with kind of how things are currently at for Warhammer 2. But I think with the way CA is going about this, they're giving the overhaul to one faction at a time, and I think that makes sense, because if you were to release a DLC that was had exclusively for Game 1 DLC, you would have a lot kind of a fallout on kind of, I guess, sales from a business perspective. So kind of having one old world DLC faction and then one core faction is kind of going to be the way to go. But this definitely shows that they are not backing off from doing that DLC for DLC. So I'm guessing we're going to be seeing at least a Beastman in a future DLC, hopefully get things up to speed. And as for the last old world faction that have not really received an update that really need it would be Norska and Chaos on top of the Beastmen. Now those I think will be fitting in very well with Game 3, so I would almost expect those two factions to really get their update with the release of Warhammer 3 in the forms of kind of just new units that get introduced, either with like Chaos Demons or something like that. But I think this is definitely something to be looking forward to. I'm going to be trying to do some more videos kind of more like this, where we kind of go into more kind of speculation on what's to come, and kind of hopefully as the DLCs roll out, kind of give you guys some nice update on all the goodies that are coming with them. So that should be wrapping things up for today. Thank you all for sticking tuned, and have a good one.